Hello, Soul Family. Welcome back again to another of our conversations on sharing my light, light workers initiation journey to come out and start, embodying and personifying your divine frequency. So, yeah, and again, today I'm here with Kira FARR and Emerging
Right.
Souls Oracle. And it has been amazing journey so far with her. And today we want to honor that and just talk about what soul family is and what these connections entail on the journey of a light worker, because I think this is the most important support that we get, tangible 3D support on ground that we get on this path. And it's like lifeline to me. Like I wouldn't be here doing this without my soul family showing up in my timeline at the right time, the right place to keep me pushing on this journey. So yeah, Kira, take it away.
Hi everyone. So we are discussing the soul family, that we all have one. We're all connected, and this is such a huge and it's such an important aspect of not only being human but being a soul. And this topic is really specifically very important to me, as loneliness is one of the most difficult things that I have faced in my entire life. And um, just having that faith that we have a soul family that we meet in our lives is so important. Just having the trust, even if you haven't yet met people that you feel so deeply connected to, that faith and that belief is going to push you into a higher level of consciousness. And I'm so glad to, as Megma said, to have met some people along my timeline who have contributed to my life and my growth. And it's just absolutely fantastic to know that there's more people coming in. And it's a really special part of being a soul, being sort of this idea for other people, especially in the spiritual community, who have gone through the part of the journey where solitude is necessary, but and that, like, clearing away of old things and connections to make way for the new. It's going to give you all that hope and that light that there are connections out there.
Yeah. So I will take it from that part. Like we are put into this solitary pockets to like go within. And I know I can tell that there are so many of you out there who have led a lonely life because you felt different inside. There was always this glass wall between you and the world because you did not feel connected. And while going through the awakening process, may have lost all your previous relationship and connections just fall out, and then you are alone and realizing this greater truth about reality, thinking you might be going crazy. And then your guides come in, and in the last video we talked about receiving guidance and messages through synchronicity like angel numbers and feathers and stuff. But then when you work with those connections and you see that how this cosmic support actually works through people that come in your life, and it might take us a while to get used to that, to trust in that, that these people are going to show up every time at the right time, the right place to support you. It takes a lot of deprogramming and unlearning about our trust issues, our abandonment issues. And so we have come to this planet in on this lifetime with so much to unpack for each lineage and generation and this country, this whole cultural thing that we are unraveling, and then finding the real gems, the real truths about the life uh, as a human and as a light worker on this journey. So yeah, so that can be crazy. And then you start connecting with these people, and I want to share a few signs that can help you identify if this is a soul family connection. Something that I have experienced with a lot of people, and even with Kira when we first connected on Facebook, I can feel my body realizing a soul memory, and there is this resonance that I felt, and it's unexplainable. And you do not have to unpack it at that moment. You can just keep it at the back of your mind and see how it unravels. And it always blooms so beautifully, and it's rewarding to watch how these connections were agreed upon previously, and our souls just knows how to move with it, how to contribute into that connection, and you just fit together like missing pieces of each other, and it is so beautiful. um, Another way that you can be sure, yes, this is a soul connection, is they will see things in you that you have been taught to or been forbidden to explore and express about yourself. So they will see the real you and remind you who you are. um, yeah, so do you want anything to add to that?
Yeah, there's definitely a unique sort of comfort that people from your soul family will bring. Um, and they do spring up at different parts of your life. And I do feel like there are different, um, like so many more people that are part of your divine plan than people expect. Most people just know about soulmates and their first thought is, oh yeah, partners and stuff. But it's so much more than that. It's people you meet that become your friends, people who um, come into your life, and they're such a small part of your life, but there's something about them that they bring to you that like completely changes something within you, and then they disappear and you think who what? But it was so important. And your family that you're born into is also part of your soul family. And um there are so many layers and so many categories. It's more than just your closest friends or your partners. It's like um all of these connections that come in to play very specific roles in your life. And I really like to think of it as sort of when you're a soul, you're at this like meeting table or something, and you're like, okay, I'm going to Earth. This is the date we're going in. I've already got my parents there. Like, that's all set up. And other souls are like, oh, I'm going in like 2 years after, or like 5 years after, or like I'm heading in there a little earlier. And then it's like, what can we do for each other? And you sign up for that, and someone plants themselves into your life. And it's so it's such a unique experience with each and every individual, and they're also important. And I don't think that there's strict boxes. I think it's more of like, people can play out different roles for you, and it can blur into that. And yeah, no, I really feel like it's a topic I could probably talk about for 10 years, honestly. Like, um, I'm only 20. I haven't met a lot of people who I would consider to be like, I feel like my core soul family are yet to come. I feel like they're in the future. But I have met some people in the last couple of years who have helped me work through attachment issues, and by triggering those, people who have helped me work through like social issues that I've struggled with my mental health issues, and just like so many things that, and one of the interesting parts for me to experience is that they don't even realize that they're doing that. They have no idea that they are helping me work through so much stuff, and I'm just sitting there working through this. And like, that's another sort of interesting aspect to it, is when you are an awakened soul and you've got, say, some friends who aren't, but they're part of your soul family and they're helping you with something in particular. It's sort of hard to explain. They're like, oh, like you could thank them 1,000 times for the lessons they've helped you learn, and they'd be like, what do you mean, what am I doing? So as you meet them, you recognize them, your soul will recognize them. There will be that comfort and that ease. I mean, for most of them, but some of them will be a little triggering, and they'll bring up some trauma or um, some struggles that you may face. And that gives you the opportunity to work on your shadows. And when you've done that, it feels like such an accomplishment and an achievement. And the gratitude you feel for that person afterwards and for yourself is so immense. Like, it's such an amazing way of teaching and connecting. So yeah, I feel like I jumped to like 80 different topics there, but it's yeah, it's a great it's a great thing to be able to recognize your soul family.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it's a huge thing, and it's a huge part of our journey. And most, because even though each one of us like is as powerful as we can connect to the God source, the universe, and yeah, we can do everything ourselves, but we are not meant to, because when you're in this human body, it's a lot, and
Mhm.
nobody is meant to go through everything alone. And one, I think this programming or belief that we have, or I had, I dealt with, is seeing a particular person, like you said, a soulmate or a partner who sticks with you throughout the journey and helps with you. But then I opened up more and more to the idea of many people coming in and different part of my time and doing their part, and we as a law of life go into our separate journeys. And that was something I had to work through as well. So I thought I would bring that up, because if you want to connect to your soul family and call them in, you have to let go of those beliefs, that energetic entanglements that is might be, creating a resistance between, if you're feeling that you know about soul families but you are not connecting to people. So you might want to work on what kind of beliefs you're holding about meeting people, about having support, about people understanding you and getting you.
Yeah.
The way I also segregate kind of the connection I feel with soul families, and is also I kind of use the term soul contracts. So there are, like you mentioned, there are people who will just trigger things in you for you to deal with, because you need to learn some lessons to move on to the next octave of your life. So for sake of my understanding and relating, I generally term them as soul contracts, because they are like our teachers who come in and help us work through these blockages. And I love how you approach it and how you talk about it, the gratitude that you genuinely feel towards those connections, even though they brought up pain in you.
Mhm.
That's exactly what the process looks like. If you have to get to that level of gratitude, and then yes, you have completed the cycles, and it's okay if you are not there, but you know that that's where you need to head to. And recently I talked about a prayer of letting go of the karmic attachments that we form with soul contracts, because they came into our life to help us learn things, and we may get into those narratives about the human stories that we are playing out to help my soul and each other's soul to learn those things. But practicing forgiveness and gratitude towards both parties is what really helps to, unravel those. Now that's how I like categorize the soul contracts and how we work with them. But to me, soul family seems a little different, because even though both these people are giving me pieces of my life to complete this journey and solve those puzzles, but the soul family to me feels brings like bigger pieces of this energetic information to exchange. Like they have something that I need and I have something, and this, and it happens on a more knowing level, as like we both know that we are in this exchange and we are in this like doing this more consciously. So that's how I have been experiencing it since I started connecting to more and more of my soul family.
Mhm.
So yeah, and I wanted just to share that because there's so much worth exploring there as well. And when we're talking about soul families and the support that we're receiving, I must also mention our familiars. Like when I got my both cats and it was on the Lionsgate portal in 2020, I could feel the presence of my guys or my higher self and that support so much more. I felt more seen. I wanted more to be here and walk on this path. And it was a very difficult time of my life when I uh, got them as anchors to this world, if I may say so. And cats are known as doorways between realms. So that's a pretty interesting relationship I share with my pets, but I regard them as my familiars. And I know Priya,
Yeah.
you have a feline too of your own.
Yeah. Um, Definitely animals are so important as our in our relationships. Like we can have such beautiful relationships with animals. And I had a cat who I got her name tattooed on my wrist. She was my best friend for 10 years, and I felt so connected to her, and she was a beautiful cat. She was absolutely amazing, and she left me when I was just about to turn 18 and go into a whole new chapter of my life. And she passed away, and it was like the most awful thing I'd ever experienced. Um, but there was a door closing, and she had seen me through to that door. And it was like she left me for me to enter this new chapter. But I really felt such a soul connection with her, and I felt like she walked me to adulthood. Like she took me through my childhood and walked me to adulthood and couldn't follow me into that next chapter. And she taught me how to survive grief, because I had it in my head that I couldn't get through grief. Like I couldn't do it. I'd never really lost anyone at that stage. And I was 100% like, no, I'm not going to be able to make it through grief. And she left, and I grieved for her. And she was my first sort of experience with losing someone in my life. And I learned after that um, that I was a lot stronger than I thought I was. And I feel like she was the facilitator for that lesson, and for me to learn that before I stepped into adulthood and into the world more. And her son, Rebel, who is still here, he's just out there, he is in a lot of my dreams, and he is like a protector to me. So he shows up in my dreams when I feel like I'm in danger. So I feel like he is like my protector. And I think that's really beautiful as well. I feel like his purpose in my life is to, and he's a black and white cat, so it's very fitting. He's got that protective sort of color to him. He, yeah, he seems to be like almost like a physical version of a spirit guide for me.
Yeah,
So I definitely feel that strong connection to animals, and especially cats. I've always had cats. Um, they definitely can be part of our soul family and our soul connections. And I feel like one thing that can tell you if something or someone is part of your like your soul family, or you've got a contract or something with them, is that you have such a shift that occurs once you've met them, or once the and it can occur at the beginning, it can occur at the end of the relationship, throughout the relationship, but there is a lesson that is learnt, and it's a great lesson that you never forget, and it like carries you through life, and animals can definitely do that. Yeah.
yeah, I love how you talk about and how you articulate how these things work. Like it brings so much clarity on these experiences that we go through
Mhm.
because we took this body to experience this, to transmute these energies, to understand these lessons, and send those lessons to the collective memory as well. And sometimes when we are growing up and we don't have this much perspective, it's so hard to understand like why we go through these things. But
Yeah.
it's just so beautiful, and it's so true that the huge shift that these experiences bring us are basically our biggest tools in the inventory that help us throughout life, and wow, gives us all our superpowers and these abilities, the compassion, the ability to hold more and more knowledge, light, and emotions. It just makes you bigger. And the bigger you get, I think you connect to more and more people. You start seeing these lessons or teachings come to you and evolve you so rapidly. It happens, and that's something that's been happening to me since I embraced even the light worker journey, and I opened my heart to see myself among a group of people who understands what I've been going through in a silo and really makes sense of whatever it is that we are going through.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah. I feel like it's almost like you step sort of into a whirlpool, and once you get into it, like these connections, you get learn the lessons quicker. You start to catch on that, like, oh, okay, this is a reason, there's a purpose for this. Okay, I've done this before, let's get this done. And you start to get through these connections a lot easier, and it's easier to forgive, it's easier to grieve, it's easier to experience these connections. And also, I was going to say something else. um, there's yeah, it does get a lot easier to recognize them and to experience them. And the other thing that I'd love to add, which I think is quite comforting, is when you first recognize how temporary relationships can be, how temporary friendships can be, how temporary relationships in general can be, and really change is inevitable. One of the hardest things for me was to come to terms with how temporary certain relationships can be. And I would struggle with this thing where I would grieve for relationships and connections that I have before they'd even left yet, because I felt truly that there was a time limit on this, and I was always like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to grieve for this, like, and then I would like grieve earlier.
yeah,
And but a comforting thought to me with that was our souls are infinite and like endless, and we know that as our higher selves before we come down. So when we agree to come into each other's lives for a certain period of time and then leave, our souls know that it's not the end of that connection.
yeah,
But we as people feel like it is. We feel like that person is leaving and they'll never come back. But we have an invisible energetic cord connected to them that we will have forever. And it's not like in like a toxic, unhealthy sort of a way. It's more of a, it's like the connection that we have with everything and everyone. We have an energetic connection to trees and to plants and to animals and to like everything that is life and everything that is a soul. And we are connected to it in this beautiful way. And so when someone walks out of our lives and that chapter closes, what makes that grieving period easier is having that overwhelming gratitude for the lessons that they brought into their life, having gratitude for yourself for integrating those lessons and accepting and remembering that they are forever, you are forever, and chances are you'll probably collaborate again in another lifetime. So and we'll recognize each other in the next life because that's what people do. That's why there's that feeling of, I don't know why, but I feel like you're familiar to me, sort of that feeling we get. It's because there's that pre-established soul connection. And so we as humans feel like we're losing something and it's being torn away from us, and that's really difficult. But our higher selves know that there's no severing. It's simply, I don't know how to describe it, but it's more of a just like softening of the intensity of the connection so that they can go off and do what they want to do or need to do for them, and you can do the same. And that idea has helped me with grieving for connections so much easier because I know that I'm not ever alone, and there's always connection all around me. I'm connected to spirit, I'm connected to people, I'm connected to everything. And that person has helped me tremendously. And these other people have connected to me and helped me tremendously. And there's always going to be, it's like a web, like there's the middle and then there's layers, and we're all connected. So it's not really as isolating as it feels when we are in that fearful ego sort of mindset. And I think that's quite helpful for me in terms of, those connections ending. And I hope that that's a helpful perspective for others who may be struggling with that extreme sensitivity to endings, because endings and goodbyes are universally a painful experience. But when we think of it in that different type of way, I feel like it softens it a little bit and acceptance can come in so much easier.
Thank you so much for sharing that perspective. It's a really healing one. And I'm sure people who are listening to this will get to feel that softness, your healing light, really helping them to understand these connections. And yeah, I just want to remind everybody that even though at moments you feel that you are alone and you're doing this, have to figure everything out together, just remember whatever you feel, information, data, support you don't have, you will be provided that with people who just have what you need, and they are just waiting to meet you at the right time, the right place. And how many times have it already happened? Like, if you think about it, I'm sure you will have accounts of things that you thought that there were no way out, and then a person just shows up with the right things to say to you and really changes the whole course of things. And these things will happen again, again, and again. These are not coincidences. You are not sent here alone, even though that's how it appeared to us, to how we have lived our time here. But you are not sent here alone. We are all have duties and assignments and contracts to help each other. And
Mhm.
we might not realize it, but we will end up doing that for each other because we agreed together on that in the cosmic table. Like, Krira said before we came down, we talked about this and we said, yes, we are doing this together. And you might not remember us like this, but just remember in your heart that we will show up whenever you need us to. And you're going to do the same for anybody else that comes, each other's path. And that just once makes me want to share a line about the hero's journey. Like everybody, yes, is going through a hero's journey, but everybody then also plays the role of the hermit or the emperor, or the priestess, or the teacher and friend and support, and sometimes even triggers like obstacles in each other's lives so that we can go through them and evolve. So this is all happening for you and for us to be an united species living on this planet. And I'm super, super grateful and excited for that. So thank you. That's all I had to add to this. Kira, if you want to close, if you want to add something, please go ahead.
Yeah, I will add one thing. I do feel like it's also important to remember your connection to yourself as well. And when you establish a beautiful connection to yourself, you are better equipped to establish a beautiful connection to others. You will always have the support of your spirit team. You may not be able to see them, and sometimes that's a hard part is you can't see them, they're not tangible. And we want those tangible, clear, like visible connections with people. But your spirit team will always be there to guide you, to drop those angel numbers when you need them, to drop those feathers when you need them. And yeah, everyone is, as you were saying with the hero's journey, it kind of reminded me of like seeing things as everyone is the main character to their own story, but everyone is also a side character to someone else's story. So everyone is a Frodo and everyone is a Samwise at the same time. everyone, everyone is going to go through these challenges and these trials and tribulations, but also they're going to have those sidekicks there that are going to lift them up and support them. And then you are going to do that for others as well. And that's the most beautiful thing about life. Like connections is the most beautiful part about being a soul. It's the most beautiful part about being a human. And it's just fantastic. And if there's any doubt in your mind right now, just know that there will be people coming in for you. They will, I promise. It can be hard to wait, it can be hard to hope, but they are there and we are there, and your spirit guides are as well.